Hi, folks. This is Harold Ree from the Paw Print Animal Rescue Podcast. Before we speak to the incredible Tamar Arslanian, just want to let you know that we are giving away a free complimentary copy of her beautiful book, Shop Cats of New York. How can you potentially win this wonderful gift? Just write us a review. Go to thisispawprint.com/iTunes or thisispawprint.com/Stitcher and write us a review. If you write us a review on iTunes and Stitcher, we'll give you some extra votes. Might help put you over the top. So once again, free copy of Tamar Arslanian's Shop Cats. Deadline is end of day on Sunday, March 5th. Also, one of our previous guests, Catherine O'Brien, features me and Nancy on her podcast called The Pawcast. Go to our show notes for the link. It's one of the best interviews that we've had, especially for Nancy. Nancy goes deep and shares a lot about her thoughts on animal rescue. Once again, Catherine O'Brien's podcast. Thanks, and on to the show.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 104. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is Tamar Arslanian, author of the book Shop Cats and creator of the blog I Have Cat.
This book was so important to ensure the cats we highlighted were beloved and well cared for, and kind of demonstrating that there's a possibility for alternative homes for cats, even if we don't see it as a home in the traditional sense.
Tamar Arslanian lives in New York City in the borough of Manhattan. She's a blogger, an author, and she shares a little bit about her life with cats, as well as what she calls shop cats. You've probably seen them at your local store or shop. Maybe you don't notice them right away, but they're there. Well, New York, with all the hustle and bustle, is full of shop cats. We get to talking a little bit about New York City and how she developed the idea for this beautiful book. If you want to learn more about Tamar Arslanian, her blog, I Have Cat, as well as her book, Shop Cats, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/104. That's the number 104.
I've been living in Manhattan for about 20 years, since I was like 5, Okay.
My wife, Nancy, and I, we both lived in New York City. I lived on the we both ended up living on the Upper West Side. 97th and Broadway is where I lived. We do miss it, even though we love California too. So,
You were progressive to be up there in those years, I think.
You know, it was funny. I moved in 1993, right after college, and that was when the 90s weren't like gentrified. And then right when I left, I mean, they had, stuff like, I don't know if it's still there, but they had stuff like the Gourmet Garage opened up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some really good bagel places. I love over on, I think it's 107th Street, Absolute Bagel is my favorite. 107th and Broadway, I think it is, so.
Well, we joke that it takes a passport to get up that high. So. Manhattanites, and I guess New York City people tend to stay in their little circle of a few block radius unless they're coming or going to work, because I guess, everything is such an effort and everything takes time when you don't have a car. It's all public transportation. So it's like a big deal. Like you really have to like someone to go visit them in another borough.
Yeah. Well, that's really a perfect segue into your book,
yes.
Shop Cats of New York, because, right, it's like I was just like you. You just kind of tend to know your few block radius, right? And then you tend to notice things. So tell us the idea behind Shop Cats.
Yeah, so actually I have 2 shop cats in my neighborhood. One is a wine store cat, and the other is a Pilates studio cat, they are both featured in my book. And I just loved going to these establishments and always spent extra time hanging out with the cats, or would pop in even if I had nothing specific to do there, just to hang out with a cat and pet them, even though I have my own cats at home. People who are cat lovers, they share information like, or photos. Look at a picture of my neighborhood cat at this, real estate office or bike shop or whatnot. And honestly, I had an agent approach me because of my blog, I Have Cat, which I had been doing for about 5-6 years at the time. Single in the City with Cats is my tagline. And she approached me through the blog, and I was ecstatic. And then I realized I had to come up with a book idea. So I had pitched more memoir type book concepts to her over the the coming year. And none of them were things that she really gravitated towards or felt would be necessarily be commercially successful. And then literally I was in the shower one day and I was like, well, why isn't there a book about shop cats that live in New York? And I literally ran out of the shower still drooping and did some Google searching. And I think there was a book in the 70s in black and white that was, didn't really tell much stories, just had some photos and quotes. And there were some articles here or there, but not much. I mean, bodega cats, which is kind of another category, I would say, than what we covered in our book, had been written up. And there were a lot of videos, but really nothing about cats that were living in a variety of businesses and that were really well loved and taken care of.
It's a beautiful book. It has a real balance between the text and the photography. When did you sort of start thinking through that concept, that it was going to involve that photography?
I mean, I felt like it really had to, because I wanted to make sure that the book really not only focused on the cats, but then also gave a sense of the environment, the shop, but then also that it was New York City. It didn't feel like it could be in Kansas or somewhere else, right? And I happened to be at a birthday party, and of course it was a cat's birthday party. It was a grumpy cat's birthday party. Only cat people, right? Because of my blog.
Yeah, that's right.
And
right.
I was introduced to an up-and-coming Instagram photographer whose handle is I Am the Great Went. And that's Andrew, my photographer's Instagram handle.
Awesome. Andrew Marttila, right?
Yep. And he had done a lot of portraiture, but I really liked his style. He had a way of taking photographs of cats that were very natural, not posed, really connected with them. And I liked the way, the coloration of his photography. He doesn't do a lot of photoshopping or tweaking of pictures after the fact, but he just has a great way of shooting photographs. And I thought he would be great. So we did some test runs on a few cats. He lives in Philadelphia, so he would come in and we did some tests and put those into the proposal. But it was definitely not going to just be about, the text. I think it was very important to bring them to life with beautiful photography. And I think what's been so great is that some people call it a coffee table book, but everyone also has really commented on the stories. So I hope we've done a nice job of balancing the two.
I remember this just from high school, that when books have a lot of photos, short-term folks look at the photos, but long-term folks actually do read the stories, right? So,
yeah.
How long did it take you and Andrew to kind of get all the materials put together?
I was thinking about it the other day. I mean, I know from inception to being in the bookstores was about 3 years, but I would say he and I put everything together probably in about 6 to 9 months. Once we actually had a contract, maybe 6 months, because he took about 3 trips out here, and I lined up 3 different kind of days of photo shoots or weekends of photo shoots, and we knocked them all out. He only had about 20 minutes, 30 minutes per cat. And, these are environments where people are coming in and out. They didn't close the businesses just to accommodate our photo shoot, and nor did we want them to, really, because we did want to get the cats in their normal, natural environment.
Yeah. I mean, in the photos, the lighting is spectacular. Did you have to bring in any special lighting, or was it all natural?
Believe it or not, the only thing Andrew used was the flash on his camera that he would bounce off of things. But there were no reflector panels, nothing on stands. There really was no time for that. And also because of the way he works, he likes to get down on their level and try to maybe, poke around a corner, and it's just so fluid, I think, and constantly changing. And because we didn't want it to feel like a studio shoot, he couldn't do that. So there were definitely some challenges because some environments have, fluorescent lighting and others were much darker, but he did a great job, I think.
Oh, awesome. How did you end up finding all these other shops or shop cats throughout the Manhattan and Brooklyn areas?
Yeah, we actually wanted to do all the boroughs. We did get one cat from Queens in there.
Yeah, I saw Astoria, right?
Yeah. But we did find it difficult, probably because, most of the cats I found online were in Manhattan. But I did a lot of online research and then a lot of asking my friends about their local cats and local businesses and reaching out to my blog readers.
Yeah.
So,
And what was the response when you called up a shop owner?
uh, they were like, oh, yeah. Like, sometimes they'd be surprised, especially if it was a cat that I had found out about, on Yelp or something like that, Facebook versus an article that had already been written about a cat, So if it was something that was really much more stealth or that I had found out through a friend, they were kind of surprised, but usually pretty eager to talk about the cat and pretty proud.
Any memorable stories? I mean, any shop experiences that really stood out to you as you were writing the book?
You mean in terms of experience photographing?
No, I guess really just like your impressions, like you visit a shop for the first time and maybe like, was there anything that really kind of surprised you or like, wow, I did not know this existed?
I think in general, I was pleasantly surprised at how revered these cats were and the way the people that work there and the owners of the shop spoke about these cats. I mean, it was so clear that they really, some people call them working cats, and I joke because they really weren't working. I mean, I'm not sure if any of them actually ever have caught a mouse. I mean, they were probably working in the sense of like supervising and doing other things, that they imagined they were doing. That was work, but not work in the sense that you think of like, oh, I'm going to have a cat for rodent control.
Right.
I think rodents were probably scared and saw the cats, and probably it worked in that way. But many times shopkeepers would say, yeah, the cat might watch a mouse as it scurries by or alert me to a mouse as it scurries by. And many of them wanted to make sure their cats were protected from any rodents. But I think, again, a big eye opener for me as well, because going into the book, I was a little hesitant in terms of this concept of a cat living in a shop. And would it be possible to find enough cats that were really well taken care of? And, I felt a little bad for them being alone at night. And then the more I spoke to the shopkeepers, and many of them have their own cats and dogs in their private homes as well, they actually felt bad for their own cats and dogs. And they felt like the cats in the shops were receiving so much more attention and stimulus in a given 10-hour period than their cats. Because, at Moose Shoes, for example, it's a vegan shoe store with cats, which is great, right? Because cats are obligate carnivores.
Right.
And here they are in a vegan store. They were like, I might see my cat for an hour or so in the morning as I'm rushing around to get ready and to feed them. And then maybe at home when I'm unwinding, but then I go to sleep. And so then that also made me think of, when we're sleeping, we're not interacting with our cats. So that's not that different than the shop cats. But then these shop cats get so much stimulus and attention during the day.
Right.
So
right.
I think that was kind of an eye opener for me and made me think about, hey, these cats don't have it that bad.
We're talking to Tamar Arslanian, author of Shop Cats of New York. Any kind of book projects coming up that this project inspired?
No, not really. I mean, I would love to do more of these types of books because I know that there are shop cats in other places. And I'm always hearing about, shop cats in other settings. But we'll see. It all, in this day and age, everything depends on book sales. And, we actually had such high demand and got such great press with the New York Times and USA Today and New York Post and Bus.com and all these great outlets that we actually ran out of supply right before the holidays, which was exciting, but also a bummer because we wanted people to buy this as a gift book.
Right.
And hopefully people still will. So, a lot of what happens in this industry is people look at your sales. And so it's like, who knows how many more we could have sold if we had had more supply.
Yeah.
So we did a second printing, but unfortunately it came out after Christmas. So, we're hoping to continue the momentum and the excitement. And I think it's a book that's great for any occasion. It's not just a holiday book by any means. Yeah. So I think it's a great gift giving book, whether it's Valentine's Day or birthday or.
It really is a beautiful book. But who knows, maybe, Shop Cats of London, Shop Cats of Paris, Shop Cats of Rome. I mean, gosh, you could just go on and on with this.
Yeah, maybe even a part 2 of Shop Cats of New York. But yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's switch to your blog. I mean, I Have Cat. It's definitely an amusing title. What's the inspiration of the title? I mean, it sounds sort of like online dating type of thing, but tell me more.
Does it?
Well,
you're the first person.
Well, yeah, it sounds like if you were on like Match.com, like it's sort of like I'm going to warn you, I have cat, but tell me the inspiration.
Well, you're kind of a little close on the warning part, because I think it was a sense of, having a cat, especially as a woman and especially as a single woman, it was almost like it's something you don't speak about in public and you speak about it in hushed tones. So it was like, I have herpes, I have cancer, I have cat. Like, it was like, you don't talk about it in mixed company. You got to be careful. You don't show pictures to people unless they're also cat lovers. So it's almost this thing that you're supposed to be ashamed of. So it was like trying to turn that into a bit of like a rallying cry. It is, yes, I have cat and I am proud of it.
So then when you think about the readers of your blog, I have cat, where do they come from?
No, surprisingly from everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. And men and women. So that was exciting as well. I haven't written as much in the blog since I had been focused on the book, but people want to check it out. There's an about section. You go to best of, and it really has evolved over time. But in the beginning, it was a bit more short story focused, where I did talk about how I thought men and cats were very similar, or how I may have, partnered up and had a companion earlier in life had I actually had cats growing up, because of what cats can teach you about relationships and even a bit of insight into the male species.
What did you learn?
Well, I think it's like, approach gently. I'm a little bit loud. I can be a little brash and forthright. So, just some funny things like that.
I love that. Approaching men as you might approach a wary cat, right?
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way, but it sounds like there's a lot of truth to that. So,
yeah, and also, I think men who have cats sometimes get a bad rap, but I think a man who has or loves a cat is someone who doesn't need constant affirmation and is confident with themselves and can appreciate a being that is very independent, has a personality, it's very independent, but is still loving in its own way.
Right. It takes a strong man to name their cat Freckles, right? So.
Yeah. Why? Is your cat named Freckles?
No. Yeah. It's funny. I don't have a cat. The only cat I had was growing up. We had a cat named Inky, which was a white cat with a big black spot on it. So that's why we call it Inky. But unfortunately, within a year, I realized I was really allergic to cats. And so,
yes.
So I'm allergic to most cats. Every once in a while, though, I'll run into a cat that I'm not allergic to, and I'm like, I want to take this cat home. But
exactly.
It's tough to actually intentionally say, I want to find a cat that I'm not allergic to. It really is tough. And we go to shelters all the time, so. Yeah,
it's tough. And these hypoallergenic cats are not truly hypoallergenic, so.
Yeah, correct. I don't think there's a specific, it's more, to me, it's more of a coincidence that I happen to not be allergic to that one cat, so.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that said, what is the state of owning animals? We've interviewed other folks who live in New York City. What's the state of owning a cat in New York City?
Well, it's interesting because you just say owning, and sadly, cats are property right now. And I don't know if that will change, and that I hope will change, but I know there's a lot of barriers to that. But it is tough because, to be honest, my apartment building doesn't allow animals, and many don't. And so that is very difficult. It's amazing how cats and dogs are sort of put on the same level in terms of, having restrictions when you're renting or even buying a place, because you're like, how could a cat be as disruptive as a dog who might bark, or, a big dog who might cause some sort of physical damage. But lucky for me, there is a grandfather clause in New York, and I'm not sure exactly how many months it is, but if you don't hide your animal from the landlord or the super or the building, and they haven't sent you a letter or complained about it within a certain number of months, you're grandfathered in. So that's how I got my cats in.
There you go. Okay.
It's a bit risky, but it is hard for people to find. It's hard enough to find an apartment in New York City, and then it can be even more challenging with animals. And I know some people who hide their animals, or say they only have one, so they make sure they're always hiding the other one. So it's definitely a challenge that I'm not sure people in other cities have to overcome, or other towns have to really deal with.
With the sort of the trend lately of folks moving back into city centers, I definitely know it's happening here on the West Coast, that there's tons of construction, whether it's near a subway station or near a town center. I mean, who knows? Maybe that trend is going to start, unfortunately, going to start to increase again, right? Where folks do give a hard time to pet owners. So.
Yeah, our only hope is that there'll be too much housing and not enough people for the housing, so they're going to have to bend some rules.
Right. Good point. Why don't we switch to the animals in your life? Tell us about the animals in your life. What makes them special to you?
Well, the ones that I live with now, or in general? Or?
Sure. Why don't we start with the ones that you live with now?
I share my apartment with two cats. One of them is Kip. They're both rescues, and I didn't name either of them. Kip was found in an area called Kip's Bay, or so I was told. He is a tabby, a very handsome tabby, if I don't say so myself. And I think he may have been around 2 years old when I got him, and he tricked me for sure, because I saw him and I was blue at the time, and I was like, oh, I need a lap cat. And he tricked me because he seemed really docile and mellow. And then I got him home and he was literally just tearing around the apartment and demanding for me to play with him. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for. But he has mellowed out over age. It turns out he'd only been in a cage for like 2 days. So I totally picked, I feel bad now because I think of all the animals that have spent so much, such a longer time in cages. And here I picked the one that had only been in there for a few days. But I guess that's why he was so depressed, because he wasn't used to being so confined. So he's my senior cat. He's around 13 or 14. He was the first cat I've ever had. And then I had a second cat named Petie, who sadly passed away last year, but he was sort of the mascot and still is of my blog, I Have Cat. He's somebody drew an illustration of him, so it's there. And yeah, it's really lovely. And first it was his photograph up there, and I still post him, and he's still on my Instagram a lot. People fell in love with him. He looked like a big stuffed animal because he was a gray and white tuxedo. He was the middle child, and then he kind of kept to himself. And then I started fostering, actually. Started fostering cats and kittens during the week, because the group I worked with didn't have a shelter, like an actual physical shelter. So they would rescue animals and then need foster homes for them during the week, and they would show them on the weekends. And so I did that for a while, and then there was this cat named Haddie, who I didn't name, but came from a litter of Haddie, Maddie, and Natty. And so she had a little bit of recuperation. She had like some infection in her eyes, so I helped her through that. And then she was ready to be put up for adoption, but she intuitively knew when it was Saturday mornings, because I would be unable to find her in my one bedroom. Yeah, in my one bedroom apartment, she would vanish.
Wow, smart cat.
So I would put out the carrier a day or two early. She still knew. So, sometimes it would be like an hour of my chasing around and trying to find her to take her in. And at one point I just gave up with this chase. And then the rescue group about 6 months after that was like, so I guess you're keeping Haddie? And I'm like, yeah, I guess.
So not the textbook definition of a foster fail.
Exactly.
More the what is it? The
foster or fail. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
And she's a little diva. And ever since I've tried to foster after her, she's made it known through some of her litter box behavior that it's not okay for me to bring another cat into the house. So I haven't yet tried to start fostering again, though I would like to.
She must be going on social media, letting the other cats know not to mess with her, right?
Stay away.
So tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up. Sounds like you didn't really have too many animals as a child.
No, I had a hamster and I had a goldfish, and that was about it. My parents were allergic, and they hadn't grown up with animals, so it was totally a different concept for them. My aunt did have a cat, and actually it's my mother's fault that or so she says, that this ginger cat that looked like Morris the cat, so they named him Morris, appeared one day, one Christmas when we were visiting family in Long Island, and my mother, who claims not to be an animal person, actually felt bad for this ginger cat and didn't know what to do, and not knowing animals, just soaked a piece of bread in milk and put it out for this cat, who went to town on it and then basically never left. So even though my mother didn't have cats, my aunt has always been an animal lover, but Morris was the first cat that I sort of interacted with. And even at that time, it was my sister who was more attached and enamored with Morris. So I don't think that my love of cats really came to be until I was in my 30s and I was dating a guy who had cats. And so I really got to know them through him. And I think until that point, I didn't understand, like many people who didn't grow up with animals, that they are so unique and that each cat is a special little personality and has this little soul. You just think a cat is a cat is a cat.
Well, we're speaking to Tamar Arslanian. What gets you up every day thinking of blog ideas?
Well, in all fairness, I haven't been so good about the daily process of blogging lately, given I started a new job and the book. But in the beginning, it was really just thinking about some of the absurdities of having a cat and being single. I found myself trying to give my cat a paw soak because of like something that was going on his foot. And I was like, it's like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night and I'm alone in my apartment and there's no one around but me and this cat. And I'm trying to give it a paw soak for like a minute, which is like impossible.
I love that.
Just some of the absurdities of sort of it all. And then just kind of thinking about, again, like some of the stereotypes and myths in our society. So I think really what I wanted to prove is that you could still have a home that didn't look like you were the quote unquote crazy cat lady. You didn't have to succumb to purple and beige cat towers. It's great if that's what you like, but sort of showing that there are other options out there. You can still keep your own sense of style and fashion and decor and still have an animal in your life. So one should not preclude the other.
If someone's listening to this, maybe he or she's moving to New York City and they do have a cat, what kind of suggestions would you offer as far as preparing for that?
Well, prepare to have an indoor cat, but it's still important, I think, to have them microchipped and collared if you can, because my cats unfortunately keep taking off their collars because you never know if you're not here and something should happen and, they get out there. You don't want them to end up at a shelter that's a kill shelter and not have some sort of identification. If you're not at home and there's a fire, or even if it's a false alarm or somebody comes, they know you have cats or the cat escapes, that sort of thing. So I think that's still really important. I think there are so many great vets in the city, but obviously do your research just like you would anywhere else. And, it is hard to find apartments that allow animals, but it's not impossible. And there are resources out there on the internet actually for people that do have pets and are looking for apartments. I think cats and apartments in New York City go hand in hand. They really do. I mean, I had a friend say once, anything's better than a cage. And so you got to think, even though New York City apartments are small for the most part, most cats seem pretty content. You just got to make sure you keep them engaged and you do things for their enrichment, obviously. And, you got to, I think a key thing too is in New York City, you got to think vertical. So I've got like cat shelves and places like above my entertainment center where the cats can perch.
Sure.
Because not all cats, a lot of cats like to be up high and look around, and you might not have a lot of space in a studio or a one-bedroom apartment. And so that's why cat towers can take up a lot of real estate. Sometimes you don't have room for that. So I think looking at other ways that you can give the cats space, like by the window, if you can create something like a shelf so that they can watch pigeons or whatever, and just think vertical, as Jackson Galaxy says. So yeah, you got to look up and see what can you do for your cat to create a little space for them.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Any kind of favorite cat stores or cat resources that you tend to go to? I'm
fortunate that with my blog, I have a Facebook page. I have Cat with about over 40,000 followers. Woo! So if I do have a question or I'm looking for a specific resource, I can post it there. And other people can post too, and I'll always repost. And there's always people that have resources or have gone through similar situations. So that's always a great resource for me, and I'm fortunate to have that.
How did becoming an author impact let's say, your Facebook following? Did it increase it, or?
Not really. We started our own Facebook page for Shop Cats of New York and our own Instagram for Shop Cats of New York. In this day and age, it's kind of harder to grow those platforms. So we have them there more just for people who are looking for more information about the book, or, in case they do look that they see that we are there. But we really did want to, we leveraged Andrew and I, our social media platforms, I am the Great Went and I have Cat, to promote the book. And I would say perhaps my Instagram has grown a bit, but that wasn't our main objective. It was really to get word out about the book. And we were fortunate enough. I mean, if you look at hashtag Shopcats of New York on Instagram, we have so many cat influencers and just regular people who have posted photos of their cat. A lot of people post photos of their cat with the book, which I love because it's like the cat's reading the book, or the cat really loves the book. It's rarely we get a picture of the human with the book, which is kind of funny.
Oh, okay.
But so we've been and it's so exciting to see people posting pictures of the book in Australia or New Zealand or France or Germany and Belgium.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I mean, yeah, to have somebody from Australia, that is really great. Any kind of feedback that's really touched you over the past few weeks?
What's been amazing is there's one woman in particular. She wrote an Amazon review. And if you bought a book and loved it, please write an Amazon review. But she actually talked about how the book reminded her of some childhood memories of going into certain shops as a child with her parents, and and what positive, warm memories that brought back for her. So that was really touching to kind of see how this book had actually reminded her of her positive childhood memories and how she connected to shop cats when she was younger. So that was really nice to hear. And also people who, loved New York and have moved away, or have family who used to live in New York, but for whatever reason can't travel back, purchased the book for them and really enjoyed it. And I think the recipients enjoyed it as like a little glimpse into New York City life, or maybe they revisited, New York City life. And many people who purchased the book knew some of the cats in the book, which was great too, because I think they were like really excited to see a cat they knew. A celebrity cat they knew.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I'm a total nerd. I could totally see myself, if I was living in New York City, spending a few weekends trying to visit every shop that you mentioned in the book. Has anybody suggested that or done something like that?
It's been brought up a lot. I've actually thought about maybe doing a tour. Unfortunately, a few of the cats have passed since the book was published, because it does take a few years for these things to get published. But yes, people have definitely mentioned that, and a lot of the shopkeepers that I've spoken to say, yeah, they've had people pop in and want to see the cat. So I think people might already be doing that. Maybe it'll help New York City tourism.
There you go. Shop Cats in New York Live, the tour.
Exactly.
What does 2017 look like for Tamar?
Wow. Well, that's a great question. You're getting all deep on me. I mean, I'd love to find another book project to work on, if not a sequel of some sort to this book, something else. I think I would like to get more involved with cat rescue. And I do, again, I had taken a break from fostering, but if I can't foster again, I think I'd like to get involved again in some way to try to raise the profile of rescue animals. There's so many people doing such great work. So for me, sometimes it's just about helping to amplify the work that's already being done.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because Shop Cats of New York, it's not like you think, oh, this is about rescue, but actually a lot of the stories that you write do involve rescue.
They're all basically rescued cats. And the interesting thing, too, is, many rescue organizations will not adopt out to a shop because they're worried they'll be mistreated or not, that they'll only be used for rodent control. And so I think that's another reason this book was so important in terms of making sure the cats we highlighted were beloved and well cared for, and kind of demonstrating that there's a possibility for alternative homes for cats, even if we don't see it as a home in the traditional sense. And that just with anything else, I mean, even when you're vetting a person to adopt out to, and I think stores could be vetted perhaps the same way, but that perhaps we can look at them as an option, as a way to give more cats more homes. I know in Albuquerque, I just read an article, there's a knitting shop and then a gaming shop, like a video game shop. And actually both those places have cats that they get from their local rescue, adult cats or special need cats that might not be adopted right away. And they actually have them there so people can come and interact with them and get a sense of their personality and adopt them out that way. So that's even another angle too. So in addition to just having one shop cat, using businesses and shops as alternate ways of introducing cats to people as potential, to be potentially adopted.
Yeah, well, that's an important perspective, right? Because probably a lot of shelters do have policies against what you just said about adopting out to maybe a business, but you really shed light on the fact that these can actually be really positive environments, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it can go either way. I think you have to be careful. It's hard to make blanket statements, but hey, there's individuals that have had cats given to them, adopted out to them, and it turns out that they weren't really who they thought they were. There's heads of rescue organizations who have turned out to be animal abusers. So, you never know 100%, but I think we shouldn't necessarily say no, absolutely not. So many of the cats in our book were given to the shopkeepers, or the shopkeepers literally found them on the streets, or, they had been abandoned. There was one cat, Matilda, the cat at the Algonquin. The Algonquin Hotel is a historic hotel. Dorothy Parker and the Round Table. It's got a huge literary history there. And they've always had a cat. Well, not always, but for quite some time. And they actually do have a cat, and they get their cats from North Shore Animal League. They have a relationship with that rescue group, but would love to see that happen, on a wider basis.
Great. How do folks find you, whether it's online, through social media? How do they purchase your book?
Yeah, I mean, my book, just Google Shop Cats of New York. Hopefully your local bookstore has it. If they don't, they'll order it for you. And if you want to get it online, of course, Amazon has it. If you want to find a local independent store, I believe if you go to HarperCollins, or if you Google Shop Cats of New York HarperCollins, you'll see there's an independent bookstore link that shows you sort of area bookstores that have it as well. But not hard to find. Just Google it. We're also on social media, Shop Cats of New York, on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to check out my blog, I Have Cat. It's literally ihavecat.com. And I also have a big social media presence. So the more the merrier. And if you have shop cats in your area, we love seeing pictures of them. So you can hashtag Shop Cats of New York on Instagram, or post it to our Facebook page, Shop Cats of New York, and we'll share them, because we're always curious to see and hear about shop cats in other places.
Amazing, amazing. You have your web of ways to communicate with you. That's incredible.
It's not hard. Just Google.
Exactly. If you had a magic wand and could do something about changing the state of animal rescue today, what do you think you'd do?
Yeah, there are so many great topics out there, right? I think TNR, trap, neuter, return, is something that I'm learning more and more about, and the importance of it.
Is that more about the feral cats, or?
Yeah, the community cats. So, because, and I don't have the specific numbers, but, one cat a female cat who has not been fixed can have an insane amount of cats, and then they have more cats, and they have more cats. And sadly, what happens is our rescue system is not set up for kittens, and kittens under 7 or 8 weeks of age take a lot of, they're time intensive. They have to be bottle fed every 2 hours unless they're with their mother.
Oh, sure.
And so not many places are set up for that. So sadly, many are euthanized. Yeah. I think I've learned a lot too about, if you find a kitten, make sure you don't scoop it up right away. It's obvious. It could very possible that the mother is not far away. And it's actually better for that kitten to be with its mother outside. I think people think, oh, I find a cat outside. I find a kitten outside. Let me take it to a shelter. But at least in New York City, and I don't know how it is elsewhere, most of the rescue groups that are no-kill are really at capacity. So it becomes the city shelters that take them. And unfortunately, they have to euthanize cats that can't be adopted out. And healthy cats go in. And because of the fact there's so many cats there and there's sick cats there, cats can very easily become sick with upper respiratory issues. And then they're put in a sick area. And then that's kind of a sure path to being put down, sadly. So, it's a bit two-pronged, I guess, my response. But I think TNR is a good place to start, trap, neuter, return, and helping support those organizations that, can help bring down the population of cats that are out there that are homeless. And then also understanding that it might not be best to it's great to trap and neuter and put a cat back necessarily, but it might be better off, unless it's a super socialized cat, it might be better for them to be outside because, again, if you take them to a shelter and if they're not socialized, it will be very hard to have them adopted out. And if they're very young, it's very hard for the staff at a shelter to care for them in the right way.
Wow, thanks. Very well said. As we wrap up, the floor is yours. Anything else that you'd like to share, whether it's about your cats, your blog, your book?
Well, I mean, the book has definitely been a passion project. And I have to say, I'm just so happy with the way it looks and it turned out. It's a gorgeous hardcover book, and HarperCollins did a great job printing it, and it's just a beautiful book, and it's a great value for the amount that's being charged for it. So hopefully people will check it out if they love cats and they love cat photography.
We want to say thank you to Tamar Arslanian for sharing her story. We also want to say thank you to HarperCollins, especially Alyssa Kassoff. Once again, if you want to register to receive a free copy of her book, Shop Cats, write us a review in the next 7 days at thisispawprint.com/iTunes and or thisispawprint.com/Stitcher. You need to get your reviews in by Sunday, March 5th, around midnight. We'll be announcing the winner in the next couple of episodes. If you'd like to meet me or Nancy on social media, you can find us on our Instagram page at This Is Pawprint. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter, same address, at This Is Pawprint. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Pawprint, you can find us on your favorite podcast app like iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play Music. Search for Pawprint Animal Rescue and hit the subscribe button to get the latest episodes immediately. Stay tuned for our next episode with author Amy Sutherland, who just released a new book called Rescuing Penny Jane. And we have a special co-host, Melinda Lee, who introduced me to Amy's work, asking some terrific, thoughtful questions. So make sure to join us. We've now made it to 104 episodes, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So thank you for sharing Pawprint with your friends and family. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Pawprint.
Pawprint is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.